it going? This is Hellbent and welcome to AutoHotkey commands tutorial number 2. In this one we're looking at the GetMousePosition command as used in AutoHotkey. For this one we're going to be using a GUI, and to save everyone a little bit of time, I've already gone ahead and created the basic template that we're going to be using. So in the description of this video there's going to be a link to the PasteBin save, so all you're going to do is just click on that link and do basically what I'm doing. I'm still suffering from a little bit of the flu. It's almost gone, but I'll be sniffling and all that stuff throughout this. Okay, so once you click on the link, you'll come to this page here, and you're just gonna go down to the bottom, go to the raw paste data, click anywhere inside of it, press Ctrl+A to highlight it all, Ctrl+C to copy it into your clipboard, and then go to your script and paste it in. And then you can save it, and when you run it you should end up with this, and this is what we're going to be using to demonstrate the MouseGetPosition command. Okay, if you're fully aware of everything that's on the screen right now and you don't have any problems understanding what's in this, you can skip to, I'll leave an annotation somewhere about here on the screen to tell you where to skip to, but if you'd like to, if you're a little bit lost in what's on the screen here, I'm going to take a minute or two to cover everything so that everyone's up to speed. So if you already know all this stuff, you can skip to this time. If not, I'm going to go over it right now. Alright. Okay, so the first part, blah blah blah, just comments. We'll cover some of that in a few minutes, but okay, so the first line is get the single instance force. This just means that when we run our script over and over again, it doesn't keep prompting us if a previous version is running. It doesn't keep prompting us if we want to override it. The next line is sets it so that way whatever our mouse position is, we're going to set it so that way it's the screen dimension. So this top corner would be x0, y0, and then whatever, rather than a window. So for example, if we were using the window mode, this would be our current window, so all the x and y would be based on its dimensions. So we're using our screen as our mouse coordinates. The next is just setting the font color for our GUI. The next line just adds in some text for the first line, so it's saying x equals. The next line is an edit box beside that. Here, I'll just run the damn thing. This is really basic. I probably don't need to cover this, but okay, so this first one here is the text that represents this, so it's got its position on the GUI and what the text says. The next one is the edit box that we're going to be using to display our information. The next one is the y equals text, and then below that we have the edit box associated with it. The next line we have the text that says window ID. The next we have the edit box that is going to display our window ID. Under that we have the text that says control ID. The next line is the edit box where we're going to display our control ID. After that we have two buttons, 1 and 2. After that we have the color for the background of our GUI. After that we're saying that even if we click on this page, this one still stays up on top, and this one just tells it to show our GUI. Then we have our return. After that we have two labels that we're going to be using. So when well actually it's three. So the first one is if we press this, it tells us to exit our script. The next one is when we hit this first button, it's going to execute the code that's contained in here. And then the last one is going to get executed when we press this button here. Okay, so and then last we have a hotkey that we can press to exit the script at any time we want. Okay, so that's our program. Now let's go into what we have. All right, so everyone that skipped ahead, welcome back. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this GUI to display all the 4 different things that we can get with the GetMousePosition. So we have the x coordinates of our cursor, we have the y coordinates of our cursor, we have the current window ID, so wherever our cursor is, it'll grab the window ID. for that. And then we have the control ID. So some windows, like for example our GUI has multiple controls on it, like this text is a control, this edit is a control, another text control, another edit control, so on and so forth. So if we want to grab the current control that our cursor is on, it'll grab that information. And then we have the options for the last part of the control variable. So we have three options. One, we can use, if we set the option to 1, it'll grab, if we have a multi-layered document, what it'll do is it'll grab the topmost child, so it'll grab the top layer from it and use that as the variable control. The second one is if we want to grab the Windows handle. So for example, if we're using post message or on message, we'd rather probably use that as the option rather than the class NN. And then last, it does a combination of the two. But for this tutorial, we're just going to use the default settings, so we're not going to worry about those. But there it is if you need it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our GUI, and in its edit field, or in all of the edit controls, we're going to create variables that correspond with our MouseGetPosition. So here, so these are the variables we need. We need an output variable for the X. So wherever the X location is, we're going to store that value into an X variable, and then the Y, and then the output window, and then the output control. So we're going to go through our GUI and we're just going to create variables that are going to store those information. So for the X, so our X equals, we're going to have variable, and then we're just going to keep it simple and we're going to say it equals X. So that's our X variable. The next one is going to be our Y, and we're going to say V equals Y. Then we have our window ID, and we're just going to keep it simple, just go along with that, win ID. So that's our window ID variable, and this will become more clear once we get down to the next part. Then last one is we need our control ID. Okay, and there we go. So we have our 4 variables, and now we're going to make a call. So once we press the button that is going to execute our GetInfo, so this is the GetInfo is where we're actually going to store those the values into those variables. So I've already set it up where it's going to go into a loop, and it's going to check to see if you press down on the left mouse button. So if you start it up and then if you press down on the left mouse button, it's going to grab all the information that is available under your cursor at that time. So all we're going to do is, so it's saying that we're going to store the value of the key state for our left mouse button. It's going to get stored into a variable called left mouse, and then we're going to check to see if it's pressed or not. If it's pressed, we're going to come into this if statement and we're going to say MouseGetPosition, and then we need our 4 variables. So the first thing is our X. So we've already created our X variable. We've said its name is going to be X. Then we need our Y. And we can use, like for most of the time, for myself personally, all I'll usually ever need is just the X and the Y, so that's fine. You could just, if you're only looking for the X and Y, you just do this and then that's it. If you need the window ID, for example, you can add that in as well. If you need the control ID, you can add that in as well. Also, if you only need one of these things, so for example, if the only thing that I needed was the control ID, all I would do is just add the appropriate amount of commas, so that way it knows. So for example, if I only wanted the control ID, I just put this many commas and then the variable name that's going to get that value stored in it, and that's it. Okay? And likewise, if I only needed X, I could just do the first, I can get rid of I could get rid of everything else and just do that. Okay, Y win ID. Okay, so now we have that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to update our GUI to show the values that are stored in these variables now. So I've already gone ahead and created the little template that we're going to use to update those values, so that way we can actually see them. We'll have a visual representation of the value that's stored in those variables. So we need the first, where I have the stars, what we need is the variable. When we use a variable in here, we're not only saying that it's storing a value, but we're also saying that this variable is associated with this control. So what we need to do is, in this first part that I have with the stars, is we need to say what control it's going to. So for the first one, it's going to the control that's associated with the variable x. And then we're going to update the value that it's displayed on it, and we're going to update it with the value that's stored in x. The next one is the same thing. It's y. And we're going to display the value that's stored in the variable y. The next control is our win ID. And we're going to display the value that is stored in the variable win ID. And last, we have control ID. And we're going to display the value that's in control ID. Okay, so let's have a look at what we have now. I don't think I should have any errors. Okay, so now all we're going to do is we're going to press GetInfo, and the next time that we press down, it should update the value for all of these things. It'll tell us where we clicked in the x-axis, where we clicked in the y-axis, the current Windows ID, and the current controls ID. And there we go. So we have this information, and now we can use this information in scripting. So we can say, if blah blah blah, move the cursor over to x this, y that, or click at x this, x that, right? Or we can say, if the current control is not this control, doesn't equal the same as this, then don't do this, or do this if it is that. Okay? But we're going to do something simple with this. We're just going to do a simple mouse move command with our x and y. So the next time we run this, we're going to store our x and y, and then when we press the mouse move, what we're going to do is we're going to get our cursor to actually move to the current location that we have stored in our x and y. So this is like if you're scripting something where you want to, I want to store this position, this click location here, and then this one here, and then this one here, and then I want to make a script that actually goes and clicks in those locations. So I first get the information that I get those locations, so that way I can store them into variables and I can play them back later. And then this is what we're doing now. We're gonna get those values, store them into variables, and then we're gonna play back the script to actually do that. So all we're gonna do is use the simple mouse move command. And we need our x equals, I don't remember if I need the variables. I think I can just use the variables like that. It's been a while. I don't use mouse move too often anymore. And we'll set its speed to 100. I think this is good. Okay, so we'll do it one more time. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our position. So I've clicked GetInfo. I'm going to click somewhere, how about here? I'm going to click there. We get our X and Y. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit mouse move, and it should move my cursor to wherever this is. And there we go. How about we add something to that? Let's expand on that a little bit. So I'm going to create a little bit of space, white space here, because what I'm going to also do is I'm going to actually set the new click location to here, and then once it moves, finally moves my cursor there, instead, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to move there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click there. So I'm going to click at the X coordinates, and I'll add in the comma, the Y coordinates. So I'm going to click, so I'm going to first move there, then I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to send and then I'm going to send the sentence, this is the end of the tutorial. That is the end of the tutorial. Okay, so here we go. GetInfo, I'm going to select line 67. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Here, let me put that up there. I'm going to hit mouse move, and it should move my mouse there. Then click there, and then send that sentence. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Be sure to hit that like button to keep these tutorials coming, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.